Talking today about drunk driving on People Are Talking, a very serious problem. We've got some people in our audience who also want to get involved in this discussion. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Richard. My name is Jerry Donald. My husband and I lost our 19-year-old daughter in November of 1975, and I have been fighting since then to try to remove our state roads from the drunk drivers.
What happened?
Our daughter was involved with the Christian organization. She was a born-again Christian, and twice a week she would go to visit this shut-in old lady that could not read the Bible herself, and my daughter played the guitar and read the Bible to her. And one evening between 5:30 and 6 o'clock on a Tuesday, just before Thanksgiving, she was driving south over the South River Bridge to the South River Bridge, and she was hit head-on by a one-armed drunk driver. He only had one arm besides being drunk. He hit her and subsequently 4 other cars. But she was first, and his car was a large car, and she had a Volkswagen. And she was killed instantly. I did not learn about it until 8 o'clock that night, when a neighbor called me to tell me that the police were trying to reach me on the phone. And of course I was very frightened. And so I called the emergency room, and they said that she was in the emergency room. They wouldn't tell me anything. And I had to go down by myself, my son and I have a 15-year-old son at the time, and where we learned of the tragedy. And my son went to church where my husband was at a meeting and picked him up, and they came down. The impact of the loss of a child is one of the greatest things, I think, that you can ever feel, one of the worst possible things you can ever feel. And as Dot had said earlier, you lose a spouse, that's very, very difficult. Lose a parent, that's very difficult. But to lose a child, it's part of your life, and it's like losing your own identity. She was such a good girl, and she had so much to live for and so much to offer the world that it just feels, I feel, and my husband and I both feel, that it's just something that can never be replaced or we can never get over. It's always a bad part in our lives.
Well, we were talking about coping, and it seems that it is something that still lives with you since 1975.
It lives with us and our son, too. Our son is now 22 and in the Air Force, and he told me not too long ago that when people ask him if he's an only child, sometimes he tells them yes, because he can't bear the pain of telling them that he has a sister that's no longer with us. And he is 22 years old, and this is what he's been very, affected by it as much as we have. And he felt that at 15 it wasn't manly to cry, and I think he kept a lot of it back at the time.
Is there a common bond, I would imagine, that is established between parents whose children are killed or crippled in drunk driving accidents, isn't there?
Yes, there is, simply because we can relate to one another. Many people have come up to us and told us they were sorry, they knew how we felt. These were kind words, but they were shallow words. We know what people are going through, and we share that grief and try and be supportive of one another.
You mentioned MAD, and you said that working with MAD has helped to get some of that anger out. What exactly does MAD do? What has it done for you?
MAD is basically a grassroots organization. It is mothers and fathers, aunts, uncles, whoever wants to get involved against drunk drivers. It is strictly volunteer work. We just work with legislation. We're an outreach program also. We do help people who have just had an accident. They call us and ask us for our help as to where to turn. We recommend them to Compassionate Friends or some organization. Basically a support group for them at that time, whatever they need at that moment. And then from there, we just tell them what laws there are available and what rights they do have to go into the court when their child hearing or trial is being heard, and to speak to the prosecutor. This is very important.
Now, this is something that we learned the hard way. Victims do have a voice in the criminal proceedings, and they should have a voice. We didn't understand that. Nobody advised us. And we're bent and determined, as long as we live, we are going to get that message to people. And that is, they have rights.
Absolutely. They have rights.
We have some more people at the microphone. Hello, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Richard. Hi. I'm Mary Rabb. This is my daughter, Linda.
Hi, Linda.
Hi.
She was hit September 13th, 1980. She has had 5 major operations. Her right foot was severed. She has scars from her knees down. She has been through a trauma. The whole family has been through a trauma because of this.
When was the accident?
September 13th, 1980, a Saturday morning at approximately 11 o'clock.
What happened?
She was walking her dog, and the driver come down the street, crossed the yellow line. She was almost on the sidewalk. He hit her, drug her, but he kept going. We've never found the man that hit her.
How's she doing now? How are you doing now?
I'm back to school now. I was out of school for a year. I was on teleteaching.
You know, listening to these stories, it is most upsetting, particularly for a parent, to realize that there are, and the state police call it, I know the Montgomery County Police who are represented here today, these are really licensed killers.
Yes, they are.
Who go in and out of bars, who drink their booze, who get intoxicated, and then take these machine guns out and run people down. And it's very difficult to understand why it's allowed to continue. But now, people of groups like MAD are being heard.
You know, what else is difficult to understand is how people can continue knowing this. We hear about it all the time, and how people can realize this and still drink and still drive. I suppose everybody feels that they can handle it. They've had 2 beers or 3 beers or a glass of wine or so forth.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, remember, as Mary had indicated, that the drunk driver that hit her daughter, this is 11 o'clock on Saturday morning. It's just not a Friday night or Saturday night massacre. It's happening 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's how uncontrolled this problem is.
That driver was never found. How do we know that that driver was drunk? She said that they've never, to this day, found that driver. Does anybody know how?
Don't know.
Okay, maybe we'll check with her later and ask her.
All right, we've got a line. Hello, you're on People Are Talking. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Yes.
Again, caller, we're having a... Can you speak up a bit, please?
Oh, sure, I'm sorry. Back 1980, my grandfather was coming home from dinner. He was very independent, and he walked where that he went. And he was struck by a 23-year-old kid with a truck, killed. And I'm having a very hard time accepting, because not consider it an accident, although I know it wasn't intentional, but I feel that he did have a passenger in the car, and from what I understand, she was toxic. I can't understand why she didn't drive, because I feel that my grandfather would be alive today. And from also what I understand, it took a couple of days just to sober him up, and this was his second offense, and he is still driving around. And I would like to know what kind of organization I can get into, you know, because it wasn't a child, it was a grandfather, and I still cannot accept it.
Thanks for your call. What do you suggest?
MAD is not an organization for parents of lost children. It's just an organization for anyone who has not even been touched. It's just concerned citizens. Anyone can join. You don't necessarily have to lose a child, not by any means. We are an awareness group. We're just making people aware of what's going on.
But you know, I want to know why people weren't aware before this. I don't understand it. Why haven't the legislators and the judges been more responsive? I mean, how many more kids have to die? How many more grandfathers have to be killed before this thing is going to be treated seriously, like it is in some foreign countries like Sweden, for instance?
Precisely.
Where they lock up these people and they take away their licenses and impound their cars. And that seems to make sense to me. What about this country? What's the reason? Why do you think?
Well, I think it's always been viewed upon as a socially acceptable thing to do, to drink and drive. And the consequences for such have been so minimal that what is needed right now is a massive educational effort of the evils of drinking and driving. And until the judges get serious about this crime, it's going to continue to go unchecked.
There's been a great controversy in recent days about raising the drinking age. Do you think that would help?
Well, based on the 9 states who have recently raised the drinking age, they have been able to reduce the nighttime auto fatality rates of young adults from 18 to 20 by approximately 28%. So, without question, it'll help. It is not the only answer, but it certainly is a help.